Chapter 52-27. After Bai Li Fan and the others left, the atmosphere became more relaxed. Even if the Bailey family was not as powerful as the D family, they were still elders and had some restraints. Most importantly, Di Xiaofeng was interested in Bailey Yunyan, so they had to pay more attention to his attitude. "I'll take you to rest now." Bailey Yunyan's lips curled into a faint smile. Her gaze was fixed on Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, but she did not dare to look at Di Xiaofeng. Noticing Bailey Yunyan's reaction, Di Xiaofeng could not help but ask with a smile, "Yunyan, why do you seem to be avoiding me?" "I'm not." Bailey Yunyan retorted, "I just feel that you must be tired after being on the road for so long." Bailey Hongzhuang and Shengguan Yingying looked at each other. Obviously, Bailey Yunyan was shy as a girl. The more she did not look at Di Xiaofeng, the more she cared about him. Di Xiaofeng nodded slightly, but his gaze was fixed on Bailey Yunyan. Not long after, they arrived at the place the Bailey family had prepared for them. With one look, they knew that they had put in a lot of effort. It was clean, spacious, and bright. It was obviously specially prepared for them. "You guys are really considerate." Di Beichen smiled faintly. Ever since the family head knew that you guys were coming, he was very attentive. "If it were not for your help, we would not have been able to enter the Immortal Cloud's secret realm and have such results. This is the first time our family has achieved such good results. The family head and all the elders are very happy." Bailey Yunyan seemed to have thought of how happy Bai Li Fan and the others were before, and her face bloomed with radiance. She clearly remembered how happy her family members were when they heard the news. As a member of the Bailey family, she was very proud of it. If that's the case, Xiaofeng can rest assured. He should be able to get the approval of his future father-in-law. Ziren raised his eyebrows and looked at Di Xiaofeng and Bailey Yunyan mockingly. "Indeed." Di Beichen nodded and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. "Wife, you should take credit for this." Bailey Yunyan's cheeks immediately turned red after hearing everyone's words. Her eyes flickered as she didn't know where to look. "Emperor Xiaofeng, quickly tell them to stop talking nonsense." However, Di Xiaofeng chuckled, "Yunyan, I also want to know if I've been recognized." Hearing this, Bailey Yunyan's face turned even redder. She angrily glared at Di Xiaofeng and ran out of the house. "I'm too lazy to talk to you. You guys should rest first. I'll come back later." Seeing Bailey Yunyan run away, Di Xiaofeng couldn't help but chase her to the door. However, Bailey Yunyan had already run out. Since this was the Bailey family, he did not continue to chase after them. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at Di Xiaofeng's helpless expression and couldn't help but laugh. Although Di Xiaofeng and Bailey Yunyan hadn't broken the window paper to this extent, they all knew that this marriage couldn't run away. Di Xiaofeng was a person who was infatuated with love. For so many years, no woman could move him, only Bailey Yunyan. Now that Bailey Yunyan's feelings were very obvious, it naturally wasn't a problem. Chapter 52-28. Hongzhuang, don't worry. Since we're already here, we'll know the result soon enough. Shengguan Yingying said with a smile. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded, a faint smile on her lips. She really wasn't in a hurry. On one hand, it was just as Shengguan Yingying said. On the other hand, she had already guessed part of the answer from Patriarch Bailey's expression. After leaving the house, Bailey Yunyan continued to walk forward. Even though she had walked quite a distance, her face was still burning. It didn't look like it was going to get any better. "Yunyan, where are you going?" Suddenly, a voice called out to Bailey Yunyan, causing her to stop. Bailey Yunyan looked at Bailey Shi in surprise. "When did you come?" "When did I come?" Bailey Shi raised an eyebrow. "Shouldn't I be the one asking you this? I had to walk over right in front of you. But what were you thinking about? You didn't even notice me." Bailey Yunyan paused and quickly said, "It's nothing. I just heard from the elders that Patriarch told you to take good care of Di Gongzi and the others. Why did you run out on your own?" "I just remembered that there are some things I need to do, so I wanted to go back." "So it's like this." Bailey Shi smiled and immediately took Bailey Yunyan's hand. "How can other things be more important than taking good care of Di Gongzi and the others? Patriarch has already said that your task for the next few days is to take good care of the guests. It just so happens that I also want to go and thank them. Come with me, I don't know what to say by myself. How about we go later? Bailey Yunyen was in a difficult position. Recalling the scene just now, she didn't want to go back and be teased again. At what later? Since you're already here, let's go together. She didn't give Bailey Yunyen a chance to refuse and pulled her towards Di Xiaofeng's residence. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were chatting in full swing when they suddenly heard footsteps outside the door. Everyone immediately quieted down. At this time, who could it be? Soon, they saw Bailey Shi at the front and Bailey Yunyen at the side, whose face was still red with embarrassment. Seeing this, everyone chuckled. They knew that Bailey Yunyen was easily embarrassed, so they didn't tease her anymore. Monsieur. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Bailey Shi with a smile. After not seeing her for some time, Bailey Shi's situation was clearly much better than before. Whether it was her essence, qi, or anything else, she had regained her luster. She was no longer the woman who had lost all hope and was only looking for death. Miss Hongzhuang, it's great to see you again. Upon seeing Bailey Hongzhuang, Bailey Shi became enthusiastic. Thank you for saving me back then. If it weren't for you, I would be dead by now. You're too polite. Let bygones be bygones. It's great that you're able to move on. I was too stupid in the past. I actually tried to kill myself for a man like that. Bailey Shi's eyes were filled with complex emotions. If she could, she really wanted everything to start over. Then she definitely wouldn't have fallen for Nangong Xiaolong. In the past, she didn't know what true love was. She only thought that ignorance was love. But after knowing that Di Xiaofeng was serious about Bailey Yunyen, she understood. Chapter 52-29. In terms of identity, status, and appearance, no matter from which angle, Di Xiaofeng was much better than Nangong Xiaolong. If she wanted to be with Nangong Xiaolong, then the difference between Bailey Yunyen and Di Xiaofeng was even greater. However, Di Xiaofeng had always protected Bailey Yunyen and was willing to express his feelings in front of so many people. Comparing the two, the difference was huge. She was very envious of Yunyen. At the same time, she was sincerely happy for her. At least Yunyen found someone who was truly good to her. She wasn't like her, who was in the wrong. Originally, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were worried about Bailey Shi's situation. Although Bailey Shi's situation had improved when she left, it wasn't something that could be solved in a short period of time. Unless she encountered some kind of opportunity that would make her feel enlightened and that everything in the past was nothing. However, seeing Bailey Shi's state of mind, they understood that she had let it go. It's good that you can see past it. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Thinking back to Bailey Shi's zombie-like appearance, this was the real her. That's right, that Nangong Xiaolong is scum. Shangguan Ying couldn't help but say, there are many good men in this world, you will definitely find one. Hearing this, Bailey Shi's eyes flashed with sadness. With her current state, how could she hope to find a good man? She had already given up on this plan. Shangguan Ying also saw through Bailey Shi's thoughts and said, Miss Shi, don't give up hope because of what happened before. Those who truly like you won't care about these things. I believe that you will definitely meet a man who is true to you. Bailey Shi looked at Shangguan Ying in surprise, then a smile appeared on her face. I hope so. In 2 days, Nangong Xiaolong will be here. Di Xiaofeng slowly said. Thinking back to Nangong Xiaolong's proud expression when he mentioned Bailey Shi, he wanted to teach that damn guy a lesson. However, he had to admit that Lin Qianqian's kick was indeed powerful. This was the best punishment for Nangong Xiaolong. Hearing this, Bailey Shi's expression couldn't help but change a little. Actually, I'm already fine, he came. Seeing Bailey Shi's conflicted expression, everyone immediately understood what she was thinking. She probably didn't want to see Nangong Xiaolong again. After all, the other party had hurt her so deeply. In the past, she had indeed hoped that Nangong Xiaolong would come to see her. But now, she did not want to see Nangong Xiaolong. From the mouths of Yunyen and the others, she learned that she was just one of Nangong Xiaolong's lovers. However, she still believed him and gave him her heart. Now that he thought about it, it was really a joke. Don't think about anything else. Bailey Yunyen couldn't help but say, This time, he came to apologize to you. When the time comes, you don't have to be polite. That's right, Nangong Xiaolong is scum. It's only right to teach him a lesson, Di Xiaofeng said. Because of Nangong Xiaolong, Bai Li's life had been greatly affected. How could she just let it go? Chapter 5230. But, when I see him, I don't even know what to say. Bai Li, she bit her lip, her pretty face full of complicated emotions. She couldn't see past it before, but now she did. She felt like she was a joke in front of Nangong Xiaolong, so she didn't want to see him again. What are you afraid of? Shangguan Ying raised her eyebrows. He's the one who came to apologize, his life is in your hands. You don't have to say anything, just listen to his apology. If you're still angry, then don't give him the antidote and let him perish on his own. Bai Li Hongzhuang and the others nodded as Shangguan Ying's voice fell. The reason why they let Nangong Xiaolong come this time was to let this guy know his mistake and let Bai Li she let go of this matter. Ying is right, after Nangong Xiaolong comes, you can vent your anger however you want. Don't think that you can't raise your head in front of him because of what happened in the past. Now that guy is inhumane, in comparison he's now everyone's laughingstock. Speaking of Nangong Xiaolong's miserable state, Xiren's face was calm. Even as a man, he couldn't stand Nangong Xiaolong's actions anymore, he deserved to be taught a lesson. Miss Shi, don't be afraid, we're all here. Bai Li Hongzhuang also spoke up. Bai Li she looked up at everyone, seeing that everyone trusted her, she nodded seriously, I understand. Seeing this, everyone was relieved. At night, the Bai Li family specially prepared an open-air banquet to welcome Bewitching and the others. The afterglow of the moonlight scattered on the ground, revealing a trace of silver, hazy and tranquil beauty. Bai Li Hongzhuang and the others sat in their seats, watching the performance of the singers in the middle, their faces full of smiles. Honored guests, you've come all the way here just to help Shi vent her anger. I'm really grateful. Bai Li Fan picked up his wine glass and said, Here's a toast to you. Hearing this, Bai Li Hongzhuang and the others all stood up. Master Bai Li is too kind. We are the ones who are grateful for your hospitality. When Bai Li Fan and the others saw that Bewitching and the others were so approachable, they felt a burst of joy in their hearts. One had to know that the difference in power between the two clans was not small. Usually, the disciples of the great aristocratic families would not pay much attention to them. Previously, they were quite worried about this. Fortunately, such a situation did not happen, so they were completely relieved. There were many young cultivators from the Bai Li family who attended the banquet. Apparently, they were all direct descendants of the family. Yunyan, I am so envious of you, to be able to receive young Master Di's love. When the news first spread, a group of young female disciples were filled with envy towards Bai Li Yunyan. Now that they had seen Di Xiaofeng, their envy was even stronger. Bai Li Yunyan had a smile on her face as her gaze fell on Di Xiaofeng, who was not far away. She was also very glad that she was able to meet Di Xiaofeng. Yunyan, there are quite a few young masters here, can you introduce them to us? Maybe we have a chance to? Chapter 5231. Regardless of his status and background, just his outstanding appearance alone was enough to move the hearts of many women. That's Bewitching, he's already married. When Xiren beside him is also married. Facing everyone's fervent gazes, Bai Li Yunyan couldn't help but explain. Other than them, there's also that white-haired man. I've never seen such a good-looking person in my life. Bai Li Yao Er's eyes flashed with admiration. From the first time she saw this white-haired man, her heart was already moved. Di Xiaofeng and the others were all very handsome, but the first one she noticed was this white-haired man. This was a kind of soul-stirring beauty. Even if it was just a glance, it seemed like it could make her heart stop beating. That's right, who is this person? Following everyone's gaze, Bai Li Yunyan's eyes fell on Bai Li Yanche. In fact, when she saw Bai Li Yanche for the first time today, she was also stunned. It was also her first time seeing such an exotic man. However, after knowing that Bai Li Yanche was Bai Li Hongzhuang's little brother, she understood. He is Bai Li Yanche, Hongzhuang's little brother. Hearing this, Bai Li Yao Er's eyes lit up. Then is he married? I don't think so. Bailey Yunyan couldn't help but look at Bailey Shi and confirm, we didn't hear that Bai Li Yenche is married today, right? Indeed we didn't. Bailey Shi nodded. Gee, then I know. Bailey Yao Air's face revealed a happy and excited smile. As long as the other party wasn't married, then she still had a chance. Yunyan, tell me the name of that black-robed man? Bailey Yunyan looked at the love-struck faces of everyone and felt a wave of helplessness in her heart. However, who told them to be so good-looking? Usually, they were wild bees and butterflies that couldn't be stopped. Now that they were like this, it was normal. His name is Mo Yunjue. He's also unmarried. Bailey Yunyan didn't need anyone to ask. She directly told them everything she knew. Of course, if her daughter could really be liked by the other party, then she would be very supportive. After the group of women left, suddenly, another group of men came up to greet them. Yunyan, who is that girl in the same white dress? Bailey Yunyan subconsciously looked to the front. With this look, she also knew who everyone was asking about. She is Linger, unmarried. Ha, you know me best. Bailey Hongzhuang was sitting opposite to Bailey Yunyan. She could only see a group of young disciples talking to Bailey Yunyan one by one, but she couldn't hear what they were talking about. It seems like Yunyan is very popular in the family. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Shengguan Ying nodded slightly. Indeed, she seems to have a good relationship with everyone. Di Xiaofeng heard Bailey Hongzhuang and Shengguan Ying's conversation and couldn't help but chuckle. There's a reason why Yunyan is so busy right now. What reason? You'll know soon. Sure enough, it didn't take long for Bailey Hongzhuang to understand Di Xiaofeng's reason. Originally, Bai Li Yenche was eating fruits while watching the performance. It was a very good feeling. Chapter 5232. However, this quiet situation did not last long. A figure appeared beside him. Young Master Yenche, you must be bored here alone. Why don't I have a drink with you? Bailey Yao walked to Bai Li Yenche's side with a smile. She was not a casual person, but this was the first time in so many years that she fell in love at first sight. She knew that Bai Li Yenche would leave after a few days, so she had to seize the opportunity. Otherwise, once he left, she would never have another chance. Seeing Bailey Yao appear, Bai Li Yenche could not help but be stunned. He stared at the other party in a daze, but did not know what to say. Our surnames are both Bailey. Since we're so fated, don't you think we should have a drink? Bailey Hongzhuang, who was not far away, noticed this scene and immediately understood. She remembered very clearly that the woman beside Bai Li Yenche was the woman who had just gone to find Bailey Yunyan. Yenche is really popular in everyone's eyes now. Shengguan Ying could not help but chuckle. It's not just him. Yunjue is the same. Wherever they looked, the crowd clearly noticed that many women were secretly casting flirtatious glances at the two of them. Not far away, Bai Li Fan and the others also noticed this, but they all laughed it off. If they could really form a relationship, it would naturally be something they would be happy to see. This kind of thing was hard to say. The matters between the younger generation should be left to them to solve. Yenche is really lucky now. There are so many beauties throwing themselves at him. Xiao Bai sighed. It felt that these women were looking at Bai Li Yenche as if they wanted to eat him up. Xiao Xuanzi's eyes were filled with envy and excitement. I really hope to transform into a human soon. I hope so too. Xiao Bai nodded. They were originally beasties, but now that Yenche had become a heartthrob, they were still beasties. Xiao He looked at Xiao Bai and Xiao Xuanzi's envious faces and could not help but roll her eyes. Yenche was originally good-looking. When he transforms into a human, he will naturally be handsome, but the two of you may not be so. Xiao He, are you saying that I'm not good-looking? Xiao Xuanzi expressed his dissatisfaction, staring at Xiao He with wide eyes. My main target is Little White. Look at how black it is. I don't even know what it looks like in human form. What if it looks like Nangong Yuqing? What do you think it will do? As Xiao He's words, Xiao Bai, Xiao He, who was eating, almost choked. Will I look like that ugly Nangong Yuqing? Xiao Xuanzi quietly looked at Xiao Bai and nodded. Xiao He's words are reasonable. Can you repeat it for me? Xiao Bai was angry. It felt that in these two guys' eyes, it looked like Nangong Yuqing. This was simply intolerable. Just as Bai Li Yao and Bai Li Yanche were talking, a few more women came over. They looked like they also wanted to get to know Bai Li Yanche. Bai Li Yanche couldn't help but feel helpless when he saw the sudden appearance of a few women. He wasn't good at dealing with people in the first place. Now that a few women had suddenly appeared, he really didn't know what to do. Chapter 52-33. Even though Bai Li Hongzhuang noticed Bai Li Yanche's gaze, she could only shrug her shoulders and give him a helpless expression. She was naturally duty-bound to help, but there was nothing she could do about this kind of romantic debt. Bai Li Yanche felt even more helpless when he saw this. He then turned his gaze to Di Beichen. Di Beichen only quietly reached out and hugged Bai Li Hongzhuang. His meaning was obvious. Who asked you to not have a wife? Bai Li Yanche silently retracted his gaze, knowing that it was impossible for anyone to help him. Now you're in for a treat. Ling looked at Bai Li Yanche playfully. Ever since Bai Li Yanche transformed into a human, his attitude towards her was not the same as before. Normally, she could not find a chance to turn the tables. Now that she saw Bai Li Yanche like this, she felt extremely happy. Bai Li Yanche glanced indifferently at Ling beside him. However, he noticed something not far away from them from the corner of his eyes. The corners of his lips hooked up into a smile. Then let's see if you'll enjoy it. Hearing Bai Li Yanche's words, Ling could not help but frown. Her eyes were filled with confusion. How could she not understand what Bai Li Yanche meant? However, Ling soon understood. A man from the Bai Li family walked over. Ling felt that his gaze was very familiar. It was the same gaze that Dai Haoan looked at her. It turned out that Bai Li Yanche had noticed the situation earlier, which was why he said those words. Miss Ling, this one is Bai Li Yuni. It's a pleasure to meet you. Bai Li Yuni's face was filled with a warm smile. I'm very happy too. Ling looked helplessly at the young man in front of her. When she thought about how she had lived so much longer than him, she felt that the other party was completely like a little brat. She didn't have the slightest interest in talking to him. However, Bai Li Yuni clearly didn't notice this as he continued, how about we go out and play together tomorrow? There are also some fun places nearby. If you want to ask me out, you have to ask him first. In the next moment, Linger stretched out her hand and pointed to a spot not far away. Hearing this, Bai Li Yanche couldn't help but be startled. Only then did he realize that the person Ling was referring to was Bai Li Yanche. Not only was Bai Li Yuni stunned, but Bai Li Yanche was also stunned. He didn't expect that Ling would drag him into this matter at a time like this. Di Xiaofeng and the others, who were happily watching from the side, also focused their gazes on Ling and Bai Li Yanche. Could it be that they had missed something during this period of time? Ling, what's going on? Shengguan Yingying looked at Bai Li Hongzhuang in astonishment. Logically speaking, among all of them, Bai Li Hongzhuang should be the one who understood the situation the best. However, Bai Li Hongzhuang shook her head. I don't know either. Could it be that Bai Li Yanche and Ling are a couple? Bai Li Yao looked at Bai Li Yanche in disbelief. She only wanted to know what kind of answer the latter would give. She really didn't want to believe this result and only hoped that Linger was imagining things. Compared to everyone's astonishment and shock, Linger was very calm. Bai Li Yanche quickly reacted and guessed that Linger didn't want to be disturbed by others, so she used him as a shield. Seeing that Bai Li Yanche didn't respond, Linger couldn't help but ask again, didn't you say you would take care of me? Chapter 52-34. At the side, Xiao He, Xiao Bai, and Xiao Xuanzi couldn't help but look at each other. What was going on? Goddess Linger can't have fallen for Yanche, right? Xiao Xuanzi wailed. Why didn't she wait for me to transform into a human? Maybe I'm even more handsome than Yanche. I think you should just give up on that idea. Xiao He rolled her eyes. I think Yanche is the most handsome after transforming into a human. How can you be so sure that everyone on the boat is dead? Xiao Xuanzi looked displeased. Xiao Bai naturally doesn't have any hope, but I'm different. What did you say? Xiao Bai narrowed his eyes, his gaze filled with endless threat. Say that again? Hey, don't hit me. Xiao Xuanzi hugged his head and flew around. Xiao He was the one who said that first. Bai Li Yanche stared fixedly at Ling. In the next moment, under everyone's astonished gazes, he slowly walked in front of Ling. The moonlight shone on that purple figure. His white hair and purple eyes were like the treasures of heaven and earth. They were bright and resplendent, causing people to unconsciously become intoxicated by them. Linger stared blankly at Bai Li Yanche, who was continuously approaching her. Everything seemed to have become his background. He was so handsome that it made people forget to breathe. After Bai Li Yanche approached Linga, his lips suddenly curled into a devilish smile. With a wave of his hand, he directly pulled Linger up. The sudden action startled Linga, causing her to lose her footing. Just as she was caught off guard and almost fell, Bai Li Yanche wrapped an arm around her waist. That's right. If you want to ask Linger out, you have to get my permission first. Bai Li Yanche's gaze turned towards Bailey Uni. However, I don't agree. Linger, am I right? Bai Li Yanche looked at Linger mockingly. His eyes were shining brightly like gems. Linger glared at Bai Li Yanche angrily and forced a smile on her face. This little fart beast, she had only used him as a shield. Was he taking advantage of her now? Bailey Yao and Bailey Uni stared blankly at this scene, their gazes instantly dimming. They never thought that Bai Li Yanche would be a couple with Linga. If that was the case, wouldn't they have no hope? Bailey Yunyen and the others couldn't help but stare blankly after seeing this scene. None of them had thought about this before. But now, looking at Bai Li Yanche and Ling standing together, they felt that they were a perfect match. Moreover, the two of them were demonic beasts, so they must have a common language. If Daihaoan knew that the person Linger likes is Yanche, he would definitely be very sad. Xiren shook his head and sighed. Daihaoan was interested in Linger and everyone could see this. It was just that Linger had always ignored him. Regarding this, they only thought that Linger didn't like Daihaoan's type. Until now, he suddenly understood. It wasn't that Linger didn't like that type, but that she already had someone in her heart. So what? Shangguan Ying raised her eyebrows. I think that Linger and Yanche are more compatible. Don't you think that they are a match made in heaven? Bailey Yunyan slowly walked to Di Xiaofeng's side with a trace of worry on her delicate face. Chapter 5235. Di Xiaofeng was slightly startled. He didn't expect this situation. Without waiting for Di Xiaofeng to reply, Di Beichen smiled and said, "Don't worry, they won't be angry." Really? Bailey Yunyan was still a bit worried. If it was someone else who expressed goodwill to Di Xiaofeng, she would definitely be extremely unhappy. Today's matter was her fault. She didn't understand the situation in advance. "Don't worry, it's fine." Bailey Hongzhuang also spoke up. Seeing that the two of them were so sure of themselves, Bailey Yunyan nodded in relief. That's good. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen quietly looked at each other. Others didn't know, but they were very clear. Whether or not Yanche and Ling would develop feelings for each other in the future was something they couldn't determine. However, at least for now, they didn't have feelings for each other as everyone thought. After all, it was already good enough that these two guys didn't quarrel when they were together. It was impossible for them to be so lovey-dovey. After knowing that Bai Li Yanche and Ling already had someone in their heart, Bailey Yao and Bailey Uni could only dispel the thoughts in their hearts. If the other party was someone else, perhaps they wouldn't give up. However, after comparing themselves to the other party, they really didn't have any competitive power. Thus, they sadly gave up. However, after everyone knew that Bai Li Yanche was no longer possible, many people turned their attention to Mo Yunjue. Originally, there were already many people interested in Mo Yunjue. Now, there were even more people. Mo Yunjue was originally a handsome man. Adding on his unapproachable temperament, one could clearly feel his coldness from a few meters away, but it made people want to get closer. He was extremely good-looking. The more you looked at him, the more interesting he became. His cold lines, sculpted appearance, and cold temperament made people feel fascinated no matter which aspect it was. Mo Yunjue minded his own business and continued to sip his wine. Because of the cold aura he emitted, many women did not dare to rashly approach him even though they had feelings of admiration. This kind of man was always dangerous. If she wasn't careful, she could be hurt by his coldness. However, as everyone gave up on Bai Li Yanche, Mo Yunjue became even more eye-catching and became the most desirable person in the eyes of all the women. If Ling Xiao knew about this, he would definitely regret not coming. Ziren couldn't help but sigh. Among them, only Ao Ling Xiao and Mo Yunjue were still single. If he could really find a woman he liked, that would be great. Hearing this, Di Xiaofeng couldn't help but chuckle. When we go back, we have to tell Ling Xiao about today's scene. However, just when everyone thought that even Mo Yunjue's coldness couldn't stop the women's passion, Mo Yunjue impatiently threw out a sentence, causing all the women to give up. I don't like women. Cough, cough, cough. Shengguan Yingying couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of water and choked herself. Yunjue is really too strong. In order to avoid trouble, he can even say such words. Only Bai Li Yanche looked at Mo Yunjue thoughtfully and said, Big Brother Linger found a very good reason. If this happens again in the future, you don't have to use me as a shield. Next time, I will directly say that I don't like people. Ling Er said indifferently. Chapter 5236. The next day, Bailey Hongzhuang was invited to the meeting hall in the morning to have a chat with house head Bailey. The person who invited her was naturally Bailey Yunyan. When Di Xiaofeng and the others found out that house head Bailey only invited Bailey Hongzhuang, they were very surprised. They couldn't understand why house head Bailey wanted to invite Bailey Hongzhuang for a meeting. However, when they thought of how Bailey Hongzhuang wanted to check the Bailey family's genealogy, they could roughly guess the reason. Perhaps Bailey Hongzhuang's previous deduction was correct. She really was a member of the Bailey family. Don't worry, Hongzhuang will be back soon. Bailey Yunyan felt everyone's worry and couldn't help but smile. On the way, Bailey Hongzhuang asked, Yunyan, have you checked the genealogy? Bailey Yunyan nodded slightly, her face filled with joy. Hongzhuang, I found Bailey Jingyu's name in the genealogy. It seems that we really are a family. As soon as she said this, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately let out a sigh of relief. Her delicate and beautiful face also bloomed into a bright and beautiful smile. Her judgment was indeed correct. She was even more grateful that the Bailey family still existed after so many years. Even if the Bailey family's influence was much smaller than before, at least it still existed. This was already a great comfort to her. However, Hongzhuang, there's still something very strange. What is it? After I found Bailey Jingyu's name, I actually saw Bailey Hongzhuang in the house head column. I didn't expect that there was another house head in our family's history who had the same name as you. Bailey Yunyan sighed. She didn't think much of it and just thought that it was all a coincidence. After all, that was a matter from 1,000 years ago. It wasn't impossible for the same name to appear. It's a coincidence. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Her expression was calm and indifferent, but she couldn't control the waves in her heart. That was her. Bailey Jingyu was her grandfather. In order to nurture her, he had exhausted all his efforts. However, she had unexpectedly fallen and failed to live up to his expectations. Most importantly, she didn't know how sad her grandfather would be if she died. She didn't dare to think about it. After Bailey Hongzhuang entered the meeting hall, Bailey Yunyan left first. This time, Bai Li Fan only wanted to talk to Bailey Hongzhuang alone. He didn't call her along, so she naturally wouldn't follow. Master Bailey. Bailey Hongzhuang cupped her hands and smiled. Miss Hongzhuang, I took the liberty of inviting you here today. I hope you won't take offense. Bai Li Fan had a polite smile on his face. His attitude towards Bailey Hongzhuang showed that he did not treat her as a junior at all. You're too polite. I'm sure Miss Hongzhuang knows why I've invited you here today. Then I'll get straight to the point. In the next moment, Bai Li Fan took out a book and handed it to Bailey Hongzhuang. He said, This is the genealogy of my Bailey family. Yunyan has already told me about what happened before. In the history of my Bailey family, there was indeed a master named Bailey Jingyu. Bailey Hongzhuang took the genealogy book and realized that Bai Li Fan had already marked it. Therefore, She saw Bailey Jingyu's name at first glance. In addition, I also saw your name here. I believe this is not a coincidence. Chapter 5237. Even though her heart was in a perilous situation, Bailey Hongzhuang's face remained calm. Bailey family head, what do you mean? You should know that Yunyan had received an inheritance in the Divine Cloud's secret realm, right? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded gently. She had heard about this from Bailey Yunyan, but she did not know the details. I've heard of it. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's reply, Bai Li Fan stared fixedly at her and suddenly asked, Lady Hongzhuang, if I may ask, do you have the inheritance of the Bailey family in your hands? When he asked this question, he was also extremely conflicted. Even though he had found out about this from the recording crystal, he did not know how to verify it. Hence, he could only take the liberty of asking this question. Bailey Hongzhuang was stunned. Bai Li Fan's words were getting more and more confusing. What do you mean? As the former master of the Bailey family, she naturally had the inheritance of the Bailey family. However, Bai Li Fan's sudden question was very confusing. As Bailey Hongzhuang's voice fell, a trace of sadness flashed in Bailey Fan's eyes. Could it be that his judgment was wrong? Connecting all the dots, he felt that Bailey Hongzhuang was the most likely candidate. This was because Bailey Hongzhuang had returned after so many years. This was a kind of fate. Most importantly, the inheritance of the Bailey family had been lost 1,000 years ago. She was the only one who could connect all the dots. Aside from Bailey Hongzhuang, he could not think of any other possibility. Perhaps I've guessed wrongly. Bai Li Fan sighed and did not continue speaking. Since Bailey Hongzhuang was not the person he was looking for, he naturally would not reveal the family's secrets. This was something that only the master of the Bailey family would know. Bailey Hongzhuang stared suspiciously at Bai Li Fan. She knew that Bai Li Fan must have a secret, but he was unwilling to reveal it. His unwillingness to reveal it was related to the fact that she did not have the inheritance. Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang decided not to hide it any longer. In fact, she had returned to the Bailey family this time because she wanted to hand over the inheritance. Now that she could make up for the regret from 1,000 years ago, she was already very happy. Actually, I do have the inheritance of the Bailey family. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said. Bailey Fan, who had already given up hope, was stunned when he heard this. His eyes flashed with a strong sense of surprise. What? You're right, I do have the inheritance of the Bailey family. Bailey Hongzhuang spoke again. Her voice was filled with certainty and seriousness. I'm just curious as to how the Bailey family found out about this. Hearing this, Bai Li Fan's eyes shone brightly. Is this true? Of course it's true. That's great. Bai Li Fan could not help but clap his hands together. His face was filled with joy. I knew it would be like this. After a moment, Bai Li Fan finally explained. To be honest, the inheritance that Yun Yan had obtained in the Divine Cloud's secret realm was left behind by the ancestors of the Bailey family. There was a recording crystal in it that only the master of the Bailey family can see. Bailey Hongzhuang raised an eyebrow and listened carefully to Bai Li Fan's explanation. She felt that this matter was related to her. Otherwise, Bai Li Fan would not have asked such questions. Chapter 5238. How is this possible? Bailey Hongzhuang's face was filled with shock. She had thought of many possibilities, but she never thought that someone would be able to predict all of this. When I first heard this news, I also thought it was unbelievable. However, the ancestor was a prophet, so he had already predicted all of this. I believed in this very much, but I didn't know when this woman would come. That was until Yun Yan told me about you. Not only did I find Bailey Jingyu's name in the genealogy, I also found your name. Therefore, I believe that all of this is not a coincidence. Bai Li Fan's face was filled with joy. He believed in Bailey Hongzhuang. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang did not give him the inheritance, in reality, no matter how he looked at it, Bailey Hongzhuang had no reason to lie to him. If the D family wanted to attack the Bailey family, they were no match for them. Furthermore, based on the current situation, Bailey Hongzhuang was obviously very kind to them. I see. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately understood. A prophet was an extremely rare profession. Only those with special talents could have this ability. Furthermore, the ability to predict was too heaven-defying. Therefore, prophets usually did not live for very long. She never thought that a prophet would appear in the Bailey family. Furthermore, the prophet had predicted that she would come. It was truly shocking. Miss Hong Zhuang, you may be the hope of our family's revival. Bai Li Fan's eyes shone brightly. He believed that the prophecy would not be wrong. Bailey Hongzhuang did not refute Bai Li Fan's words. The reason why the Bailey family was gradually declining was largely because of her. If possible, she also hoped that under her leadership, the Bailey family would become strong again. Only then would she feel less regret and guilt. Bai Li Fan looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, whose expression had changed slightly, and pondered for a moment before hesitantly asking, Miss Hongzhuang, can you tell me what kind of inheritance you possess? Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. If I'm not wrong, a part of the family's cultivation method is missing. Back then, the cultivation method had always been with her. At that time, she was a rare genius in the family, and the inheritance was also in her hands. However, due to his death, his cultivation technique had disappeared along with him. Although the Bailey family was extremely powerful at that time, there weren't many cultivators who actually practiced the entire technique. However, any disciple who could cultivate was undoubtedly extremely powerful. It was because of them that the family had always been strong. As soon as he said this, Bai Li Fan couldn't help but widen his eyes in shock. Could it be that you have a clan's cultivation method? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. That's right. Our family's cultivation method has disappeared for many years. How did you get it? As the master of the Bailey family, Bai Li Fan naturally knew that the real cultivation method had disappeared for many years. Hundreds of years ago, the master of the Bailey family still had the idea of finding the cultivation method. However, as time passed, everyone completely gave up. He never thought that one day he would be able to find the family's cultivation method. This was passed down from my ancestors. As for the situation in the past, I don't know. Chapter 5239. After listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's explanation, Bai Li Fan did not think too much about it. From his point of view, Bailey Hongzhuang was only a junior. So many years had passed since this incident. As the head of the family, even he did not understand the situation, let alone Bailey Hongzhuang. However, as long as the cultivation technique was found, it would be great news. When Bailey Hongzhuang returned to her residence, Bewitching and the others welcomed her. Hongzhuang, what did the head of the Bailey family talk to you about? Shengguan Ying asked with concern. Seeing the concern on everyone's faces, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Nothing much, I just confirmed that my ancestor used to be a member of the Bailey family. After hearing this, other than Di Beichen and Di Xiaofeng who already knew about this, everyone else's faces were filled with astonishment. What a coincidence! Shengguan Ying's eyes widened. So, Hongzhuang, your ancestor used to be a member of the upper realm. How did he end up in the lower realm? I don't know either. Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged. However, I'm still very happy to be able to acknowledge my ancestors. This is great, you and Yunyan are really sisters. Di Xiaofeng chuckled and looked at Di Beichen. Beichen, we brothers are really fated. They both liked women from the Bailey family. What kind of fate was this? Di Beichen smiled. Indeed. Hongzhuang, congratulations. Mo Yunjue's icy face also revealed a trace of a smile, but there was a complicated light in the depths of his eyes. According to his judgment, this matter was not as simple as it seemed. There must be other reasons. However, since Bailey Hongzhuang did not say anything, she must have her reasons. During lunch, Bai Li Fan invited all the elders, disciples of the family, and Bailey Hongzhuang to gather together and announced that he had something to announce. Regarding this, all the elders of the Bailey family felt that it was very strange. They did not know what the head of the family would announce at this time. However, when everyone heard the contents of Bai Li Fan's announcement, they were all dumbfounded. I announce that from today onwards, Bailey Hongzhuang will be the head of the Bailey family. Bai Li Fan's solemn face revealed a serious and solemn expression. His majestic voice was extremely loud and clear. clearly into everyone's ears. Of the world of the Bailey family's family. Bailey Hongzhuang's view of the world, of course, Bailey, and of Bailey Hongzhuang, of course. What did Patriarch say? To Bailey Hongzhuang of the family of the family? How is this possible? Is the head of the family crazy? How could he make such a decision? Could it be that the head of the family decided to give the position of the head of the family to Bailey Hongzhuang in order to climb up to the D family? Even if Bailey Hongzhuang is also surnamed Bailey, she is not a member of the Bailey family. For a moment, everyone was in an uproar. Incredulous gazes fell on Bai Li Fan and Bailey Hongzhuang. In their opinion, this was simply a big joke. Di Xiaofeng and the others also looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in astonishment. They knew that Bailey Hongzhuang was indeed a member of the Bailey family. However, why would Bai Li Fan suddenly decide to give the position of the head of the family to Bailey Hongzhuang? This did not make sense at all. Chapter 5240. Choosing the next head of the family was definitely a serious matter. No matter what, Bai Li Fan would not joke about this matter. However, in just half a day, Bai Li Fan had made such a shocking result. How could they not be shocked? The head of the Bailey family is actually going to give the position of the head of the family to Hongzhuang. Isn't this too unbelievable? Di Xiaofeng looked at Di Beichen in astonishment. Previously, they did not hear this news from Bailey Hongzhuang. When Di Beichen first heard this news, a trace of shock flashed across his eyes. However, he quickly calmed down. When Hongzhuang mentioned this matter in the past, he knew that Hongzhuang had always felt guilty about this and wanted to find an opportunity to make up for it. In the past, she thought that the Bailey family had disappeared. Now that she had the opportunity to become the head of the Bailey family again, it would make up for her regret. After all, she used to be the head of the Bailey family. However, due to an accident, she disappeared along with the family's inheritance. Even though so many years had passed and many things had changed, this was still her home. Everyone here was her family. The head of the Bailey family must have his own thoughts. Di Beichen smiled faintly. Seeing Di Beichen's calm expression, a trace of surprise flashed across Di Xiaofeng's eyes. It seemed that his brother had already guessed it. Bailey Yunyan also did not dare to believe it at first. However, when she recalled the recording crystal that the head of the family mentioned previously, she already had some guesses in her mind. Perhaps Bailey Hongzhuang was really the person that was mentioned in the recording crystal. She held the family's inheritance in her hands and carried the hope of the family to become stronger. It was because of this that the head of the family decided to give the position of the head of the family to her. If this was really the case, then she agreed. Moreover, she also liked Bailey Hongzhuang very much. Shangguan Yingying, Wen Ziren, Mo Yunjue, Bai Li Yanche, and Linger all looked at each other. They had no idea what was going on. However, no matter how one looked at it, this did not seem to be a bad thing. Ziren, if Hongzhuang really becomes the head of the Bailey family, then Xiao Sou and the others won't have the right to laugh at Hongzhuang for coming from the underworld, right? When Ziren nodded slightly, a smile appearing between his brows. That's right, they've always said that Hongzhuang's status is not good enough for Beichen, but with this layer of status, this kind of saying is not justified. That's great. Shangguan Yingying's eyes sparkled. Previously, when everyone had brought up this point, even though Hongzhuang had appeared extremely calm, Shangguan Yingying knew that Hongzhuang would not feel good about it. This was like a soft spot that had been constantly poked at but could not be refuted. However, with this layer of status, even if there was still a gap in the power of the two families, it would definitely be much smaller than before. Compared to Shangguan Yingying and the others who were overjoyed, the elders and disciples of the Bailey family could not accept this at all. They only thought that Bai Li Fan must have gone mad to make such an incomprehensible decision. Head of the family, we cannot accept this decision. The great elder was the first to step out. His elderly face was filled with intense dissatisfaction. How can the Bailey family hand over the position of the head of the family to someone else? Are you muddle-headed? As he was too angry, the great elder's words were not polite at all. Chapter 5241. Bai Li Fan was not surprised by the elders' opposition. This situation was within his expectations. He knew that his decision was crazy, but he was sure that his judgment was correct. I have already made my decision and I will not change it. Bai Li Fan's expression was serious and solemn. Elders, I will explain the specific reason to you later. Patriarch, did they force you to do this? The first elder's eyes were filled with worry and anger. He had always known the family head's character. If there was no reason, the family head would never do such a thing. No matter how he thought about it, he couldn't think of any other possibility other than this one. As soon as he said this, the Bailey family looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's group with unkind eyes. Young Master D, Miss Bailey, we have treated you as our honored guests. How can you bully us just because you have a strong family? That's right. Even if our clan's strength is not a match for the D clan, we will definitely not give up our entire clan just like that. The elders' attitudes changed almost instantly. They knew how much Bai Li Fan cared about the family. For Bai Li Fan to make such a decision, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others must have done something very overboard. Seeing this, Shangguan Yingying could not help but frown. Her face was filled with dissatisfaction. What nonsense are you talking about? When did we bully you? They couldn't accept being labeled with such a big label for no reason. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang turned to look at Shangguan Yingying. Leave this matter to family head Bailey. Since this was Bai Li Fan's decision, she believed that Bai Li Fan had the ability to solve it. Hearing this, Shangguan Yingying's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. She immediately suppressed the dissatisfaction in her heart. At this moment, another figure walked into the hall. Seeing this person, Bailey Yunyin's eyes were filled with surprise and nervousness. Bailey Tianheng is here. Bailey Tianheng? Di Xiaofeng raised his eyebrows and asked silently. Bailey Tianheng is the son of the patriarch. Although the patriarch has yet to appoint a young master, everyone knows that the position of young master belongs to him. Previously, when Bailey Tianheng was training outside, he obtained quite a lot of opportunities. During this period of time, he has been in seclusion, so he did not make it to the immortal cloud mystic realm. However, from his aura, his strength has improved greatly. Bailey Yunyin's heart was in a mess. She didn't want to see the conflict between the two sides because of this matter. In fact, even though she had roughly guessed the reason, she never thought that the master would have such great courage to make such a decision. I see. Di Xiaofeng and the others immediately understood. They had indeed never seen this person before. However, from the aura he exuded, his strength was indeed stronger than the Bailey family's disciple who had entered the immortal cloud's secret realm. Bailey Tianheng was not in a good mood to begin with. All along, the Bailey family had rarely obtained a place to enter the immortal cloud mystic realm. Even though they did not miss out on every alchemy competition, in reality, it was all about participating. Therefore, he had never taken this matter to heart. Chapter 5242. However, Bailey Tianheng was in the middle of his closed-door cultivation and he had previously said that he could not be disturbed. Hence, even though Bai Li Fan felt that it was a pity to miss this opportunity, he did not disturb him. After all, if he made a mistake during this important period of cultivation, he would suffer from qi deviation. Hence, when Bailey Tianheng came out of his closed-door cultivation and heard the news, he almost blacked out and fainted. Because this matter was too depressing, Bailey Tianheng did not come out to meet anyone and continued his closed-door cultivation. As the person most likely to inherit the position of the master of the household, no matter what, his cultivation could not be caught up by others. Today, he was also cultivating but was suddenly disturbed by a hurried voice. Initially, he was extremely unhappy, but when he heard that his father wanted to hand over the position of the master of the household to an outsider, he could no longer remain calm. This was simply too unacceptable. The eyes of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others also fell on Bailey Tianheng's body. Bailey Yunyin's voice was not small, and they all heard it clearly. Wife, I'm afraid that Bailey Tianheng will not agree so easily. Di Beichen's lips curled into a devilish smile and his calm face did not show any signs of worry. Naturally, I will settle my son's problem. Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged her shoulders. She was not determined to obtain the position of the master of the household. However, Bai Li Fan had always insisted on this because this was the news he had obtained from the recording crystal. Therefore, she didn't refuse. After all, it wasn't a bad thing to learn about the current situation of the 100 Lane clan through this matter. Tianheng, you're here? Seeing Bailey Tianheng's appearance, Bai Li Fan's stern face relaxed for a moment. Father, how could you make such a decision? Bailey Tianheng did not care about anything else and went straight to the point. This was simply infuriating. I naturally have my reasons for doing this. Master, Tianheng is your son. In the entire family, only he is qualified to become the young master. That's right. In our hearts, Tianheng is already the young master. You can't make such a foolish decision. If the position of the master of the household is really handed over to Bailey Hongzhuang, what will happen to Tianheng? Following Bailey Tianheng's appearance, the group of elders immediately found a breakthrough. Seeing so many elders supporting him, Bailey Tianheng's heart calmed down. He turned his head and his gaze landed on Bailey Hongzhuang. Although he had never seen Bailey Hongzhuang before, he had a rough idea of her from the description of the servants. Hence, with just a glance, he could tell who was Bailey Hongzhuang, of course, of the Bailey Hongzhuang. Even though his heart, Bailey Tianheng of Bailey of course, Bailey of the household. What a peerless of a beauty. Of a lotus flower bloom Bailey ye Bailey, Bailey, Bailey Bailey Bailey, Bailey Bailey. Bailey. Of Bailey. How could you make my father make such an unreasonable decision? Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Bailey Tianheng indifferently. She did not seem to feel his anger at all. There was a stark contrast between the two. I did not do anything. This is your father's decision. That's impossible. Chapter 52-43. Tianheng, don't be rash. Bai Li Fan stood out when he saw that everyone was pointing their spears at Bailey Hongzhuang. If anyone has any questions, ask me. Don't point your spears at Hongzhuang. Everyone's gaze changed when they heard the change in the way Bai Li Fan addressed her. They couldn't understand when the relationship between the master and Bailey Hongzhuang had become so close. Father, are you confused? How can you hand the family over to an outsider? Bailey Tianheng felt that he was about to go crazy. His father was acting too strangely today. He didn't seem like the person he usually was. Bailey Hongzhuang is a member of my family. Following Bailey Fan's words, the originally noisy discussion hall fell silent for a moment. Everyone looked at Bai Li Fan and Bailey Hongzhuang in disbelief. How did Bailey Hongzhuang become a member of their family? This was something they had never heard of before. The great elder and the second elder glanced at each other. Originally, they didn't understand why the patriarch would suddenly do such a thing. But after a while, they suddenly understood. Could it be Bailey Hongzhuang was actually the master's illegitimate daughter? Did she come back this time to acknowledge her ancestors? If this was really the case, then everything could be explained. After all, Bailey Hongzhuang was now the young madam of the D family. If she became the master of the Bailey family, it would be of great help to the family. It wasn't just the two elders. Bailey Tianheng and the rest of the young disciples had the same thought in their minds. Because, other than this reason, they couldn't think of any other reason. At that moment, Bailey Tianheng realized that everyone was looking at him with sympathy. This feeling was enough to make him die of shame and anger. Father, how could you do such a thing? Bai Li Fan heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that everyone had finally quietened down. However, he didn't expect to hear Bailey Tianheng's bitter words. He was puzzled. Tianheng, Hongzhuang is really a member of my Bailey family. Master, what you did was really wrong. The great elder sighed. He didn't expect the master to do such a thing. What did I do wrong? Bai Li Fan looked at everyone in confusion. The great elder saw that Bai Li Fan still wanted to continue hiding it. He couldn't help but glance at him and Bailey Hongzhuang with a strange expression. After pondering for a moment, Bailey Fan suddenly understood what he meant, and his expression suddenly became incomparably strange. What nonsense are you all guessing? Bai Li Fan was also angry. These guys actually thought of such a messy thing. Hongzhuang's ancestors are members of my family. However, For some reason, they ended up in the lower realm. Now, she has my family's long-lost cultivation method in her hands. Following Bai Li Fan's words, everyone was stunned. A series of gasps could be heard. They were filled with shock and disbelief. Did I hear wrongly? Master said that Bailey Hongzhuang has the family's inheritance in her hands? I heard that our family's cultivation method was originally extremely powerful. However, it has been lost for many years. If it wasn't lost, our family would definitely be stronger than it is now. Chapter 5244. Bailey Tianheng's expression suddenly froze. The original shame and pain turned into confusion in an instant. He wondered if he had heard wrongly. Bailey Hongzhuang was actually a member of the Bailey family, and it was not like what he had thought. The sudden change really made him unable to react. However, compared to his previous guess, this situation was undoubtedly much easier for him to accept. Shengguan Ying and the others all looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in shock. It was not until this moment that they completely understood the real reason. Bai Li Fan looked at the elders who collectively fell into a daze. He looked apologetically at Bailey Hongzhuang and the others and said, "Hongzhuang, I'm afraid this matter needs to be discussed internally first." "Why don't I?" Bailey Hongzhuang immediately understood Bai Li Fan's meaning. Presumably, Bai Li Fan originally wanted to directly announce the result to everyone and then explain. However, because everyone's reaction was too intense, they did not even give him a chance to explain. Helplessly, he could only make such a decision. "In that case, we'll leave first." Di Xiaofeng and the others naturally understood. Thinking that Bai Li Fan and the others actually had such exaggerated thoughts in their minds, they also thought that it was indeed necessary for Bai Li Fan to properly explain this matter to avoid unnecessary misunderstandings. It was not until they left the meeting hall that Shengguan Ying finally asked a bellyful of questions. "Hongzhuang, what's going on? You actually have the inheritance of the Bailey family." Even if they already knew that Hongzhuang and the Bailey family were of the same origin, they never thought that she actually had the inheritance of the Bailey family in her hands. This was extremely amazing. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. "Yes, this was passed down by my ancestors." "No wonder you're so powerful." Shengguan Ying immediately understood. "So you've been cultivating the inheritance of the upper realm all this time." Following Shengguan Ying's words, Xiren also came to a realization. "Yes, I finally found the reason why you're so abnormal." Looking at the two of them who looked as if they had discovered a new world, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but chuckle. Although she did not cultivate the cultivation method of the Bailey family, the demon summoning scripture was obviously not an ordinary cultivation method. This was indeed the reason why her cultivation speed was faster. "Hongzhuang, I see that Bailey Tianheng is extremely dissatisfied with this matter. Do you think that Bailey family's head can convince everyone?" There was a trace of worry in Mo Yunjue's deep eyes. He had seen the situation clearly just now. Other than Bai Li Fan, no one else supported Bailey Hongzhuang. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang's family inheritance, they would not. In fact, no matter from which point of view, this was the Bailey family. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. "This will depend on Bailey family's ability. However, even if everyone opposes it, I don't care. The position of the family's head was forced upon me by Bailey family's head. I don't have any plans to obtain it." Now, it had already been 1,000 years. Even if they were still in the same family, it was not the same as before. If she was allowed to lead the Bailey family again, she would not refuse. However, if everyone was unwilling, she would not take it to heart. As long as the Bailey family's inheritance could be passed down, that would be the happiest thing for her. Chapter 5245. From the very beginning, they had been most worried about Bailey Hongzhuang's emotions. Since she had thought things through, everyone was relieved. Regardless of the outcome, it did not matter. Compared to the calm and indifferent atmosphere of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, the Bailey family's meeting hall was in full swing at the moment. "Patriarch, what's going on?" The great elder stared anxiously at Bai Li Fan. He now knew that there must be an extremely important reason for the master's actions. Hence, he was eager to know the real reason. It was not just the great elder. All the other elders and disciples of the Bailey family fell silent as they stared at Bai Li Fan, eager to hear his explanation. Looking at the anxious looks on everyone's faces, Bai Li Fan sighed and said, "We'll have to start from the inheritance that Yun Yen had obtained in the Divine Cloud's secret realm." Inheritance? Bailey Tianheng was stunned. He had only just come out of his closed-door cultivation today and did not know that Bailey Yun Yen had obtained the inheritance in the Divine Cloud's secret realm. Bailey Yun Yen stood calmly on the spot as if she had not noticed the complicated and curious gazes of the crowd. Then, Bailey Fan told him the whole story from beginning to end. Previously, he had not mentioned this matter because he had not found the woman who could bring hope to the family as mentioned in the recording crystal. Once this news got out, no one knew if someone would come forward to impersonate her. However, now that he had confirmed that this person was Bailey Hongzhuang, there was no need for him to continue hiding it. What? How could such a thing have happened? The first elder's face was filled with shock. This situation was simply too unbelievable. "Master, what you've said is true." Bailey Yun Yen finally spoke. "Furthermore, before we entered the Divine Cloud's secret realm, Hongzhuang had asked me to check the genealogy. This is definitely not a coincidence, nor was it purposely arranged." Bailey Tianheng, who was originally thinking of stopping his father's actions no matter what, fell into silence at this moment. If it was the old ancestors' prophecy, they indeed had no reason to refuse. "Patriarch, have you confirmed this matter?" The second elder's face was full of hesitation and worry. "If it's wrong, it'll be terrible." "I've already confirmed it." Bai Li Fan looked serious. "Needless to say, I'm sure you can figure it out." Bailey Hongzhuang was originally the young mistress of the D family. After what happened in the Immortal Cloud's secret realm, Bewitching's status as the young master of the D family would not change. "Do you think she needs to tell such a lie?" As soon as he said this, the second elder immediately shut his mouth. Indeed, no matter how one looked at it, Bailey Hongzhuang had no reason to do so. Moreover, the family's lost cultivation method was really in her hands. Just this point alone was enough to prove a lot of things. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. This sudden result was really hard for them to accept. However, after understanding the real reason, they could not refute it. However, from now on, Bailey Hongzhuang would become their new patriarch. It was really hard for them to get used to it. "Now, does anyone have any objections to my decision?" Everyone fell silent. This was the old ancestors' prophecy. Who could say no? Chapter 5246. After everyone left, Bai Li Fan looked at Bailey Tianheng, who was left alone. "Tianheng, I know it's hard for you to accept this. I've wronged you." Bai Li Fan's eyes were apologetic. Before this, he also believed that Bailey Tianheng would be the next young master. It was not only because he was his son, but also because he was outstanding in all aspects. No one would object to letting him succeed the position of patriarch. However, plans could not keep up with changes. No one expected such a thing to happen. Compared to the entire family's future, he could only choose to wrong his son. Bailey Tianheng's expression was complicated. Too many things had happened today. It was hard for him to accept. However, he was not an unreasonable person. He knew that his father must have considered many aspects before making such a decision. "Father, I know your decision is not wrong. It's just that I need some time." Bailey Tianheng forced a smile. The psychological gap was too big. Even if he tried his best to look past it, he still felt that it was difficult to do so. At least, he still could not do it in a short period of time. Hearing Bailey Tianheng's words, Bai Li Fan felt even more guilty. If Bailey Tianheng showed a lot of dissatisfaction or lost his temper, he would feel better. However, seeing that his son was so sensible, his feelings were even more complicated. All along, Bailey Tianheng was the son he was proud of. He had never disappointed him. But now, he had disappointed Bailey Tianheng. Bailey Tianheng did not stay for long. Too many things had happened so suddenly. He needed to calm down. Bai Li Fan did not force him to stay. He believed that Bailey Tianheng would understand everything. Bailey Yun Yen immediately informed Bailey Hongzhuang after the result was out. Hearing the result, everyone sighed in their hearts. Patriarch Bailey is really amazing. He actually convinced everyone. Xiren sighed. Won't Bailey Tianheng feel that it's unfair? According to his judgment, it would be hard for anyone to accept that the cooked duck flew away just like that. Moreover, judging from Bailey Tianheng's behavior earlier, he simply couldn't wait to chase them out. Actually, Tianheng has always been a very reasonable person. Today, he suddenly heard this news, so his behavior was a little extreme. But after he understood the real situation, he accepted it, but he must have felt uncomfortable in his heart. Bailey Yunyan explained with a smile. One must know that Bailey Tianheng had always been highly sought after in the family. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. This Bailey Tianheng actually didn't cause any trouble? Bailey Yunyan's voice was firm. Hongzhuang, after you spend more time with him, you will know that he is actually a very good person. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. A strange look flashed in her eyes, but her face revealed a smile like a spring breeze. That's good. Tisk tsk, I didn't expect that there would be 3 young lords in our group. That's really amazing. Xiren sized up Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 2. In the blink of an eye, Bailey Hongzhuang had also become the patriarch. Yes, only the 3 of us are like duckweeds without anyone to rely on. Shengguan Inying sighed. You husband and wife don't drag me into this. Mo Yunjue quietly said. Chapter 5247. Following Bai Li Fan's decision, the members of the Bailey family began to accept the fact that Bailey Hongzhuang had become their family head. However, even though everyone already knew the reason behind this, they still found it hard to accept. This was because they simply did not understand the personality of this family head. They also did not know what kind of changes would occur in the family after she had become the family head. Furthermore, during this period of time, there had been many rumors about Bailey Hongzhuang, and many of them had been added to her mysterious aura. She had clearly come from a lower realm but had managed to secure her position as the young madam of the D family. Not only was her pill refining skills outstanding, her medical skills were also top-notch. In everyone's opinion, this was something that was impossible. However, all of these things had happened to her alone. Of course, everyone understood that Bailey Hongzhuang had enough confidence to become the family head due to her various identities. Therefore, everyone was most concerned about Bailey Hongzhuang's temperament. In the entire family, the ones who understood Bailey Hongzhuang the most were Bailey Yunyan and Bailey Shi. In an instant, the residence of the 2 had become the most lively place in the family. Both Bailey Yunyan and Bailey Shi were full of goodwill towards Bailey Hongzhuang. Naturally, they would do their best to speak well of her when they were explaining things. On the 3rd day, Bailey Hongzhuang accepted Bai Li Fan's family head succession ceremony. This was a major event that attracted the attention of the entire Bailey family. Bai Li Fan handed the family head seal to Bailey Hongzhuang and announced to the crowd below the high platform, "From today onwards, Bailey Hongzhuang is the family head of the Bailey family." Greetings, family head. The members of the Bailey family all bowed. They no longer treated Bailey Hongzhuang as an equal or even a junior. From today onwards, Bailey Hongzhuang was the family head that they respected the most. On the high platform, a white figure stood proudly. The golden sunlight shone on her body, making her already otherworldly figure appear even more ethereal and noble. Bailey Hongzhuang's exquisite face was calm and serious. Looking at the dense crowd below the stage, the corners of her lips curled up into a faint smile. From today onwards, I am the head of the family. Now, I have something to announce. Many curious and doubtful gazes fell on Bailey Hongzhuang. Of course, some of the young disciples who were not convinced were even more dissatisfied. She's just relying on the lost inheritance of her family to obtain the position of the head of the family. She's really going too far. She's already the head of the family. It's only natural that she has something to announce. It's not that I have a problem with it. I just feel indignant on Tianheng's behalf. Who would be able to accept the sudden appearance of such an inexplicable character to snatch his position as young master? Hearing the discussion of the people beside him, Bailey Tianheng couldn't help but frown and berate. What nonsense are you talking about? The family head is Bailey Hongzhuang. If you continue to be so disrespectful to the family head, you'll be punished. The expressions of the three people beside him instantly changed. They lowered their heads and no longer said a word. Bailey Tianheng's feelings were extremely complicated. However, no matter how difficult it was to accept this, he would not make things difficult for his father. He would support his father's decision. As long as it was a decision that would benefit the family, he would support it. His father was even willing to hand over the position of the family head. What more him? Chapter 5248. Bai Li Fan and the elders all stared at Bai Li Hongzhuang. They only wanted to know what Bai Li Hongzhuang would announce on the first day of the succession. In fact, even if Bai Li Fan handed the position of family head to Bai Li Hongzhuang according to the ancestors' prophecy, he still had some concerns in his heart. Bai Li Hongzhuang's strength was indeed amazing, but strength and becoming the family head were two different things. Many people were extremely outstanding, but they couldn't become a good family head. At the same time, some people's strength might not be the most outstanding in the family, but their breadth of mind, temperament, and way of handling things made them a good family head. At least, they still didn't know Bai Li Hongzhuang's ability in this area for the time being. Therefore, what Bai Li Hongzhuang was going to announce at this moment was also something they were very concerned about. I know that everyone has some complaints about me inheriting the position of family head, but whether you support or oppose it, I have already become the family head, so I hope that everyone can recognize this fact. Her cold voice was domineering and domineering. Her ink-black phoenix eyes sized up the people below the stage. Her sharp and penetrating gaze seemed to be able to see through people's hearts, causing people to unconsciously lower their heads, not daring to meet her gaze. Hongzhuang is really domineering. Just one look and everyone doesn't dare to look at her. Shangguan Yingying's eyes were filled with amazement. She had always known about Bai Li Hongzhuang's strength, but she didn't know that she had such a domineering and fierce side. Logically speaking, even if Bai Li Hongzhuang and the Bai Li family were of the same origin, she was still an outsider and didn't have anyone's support here. If it were her, it would be good if she didn't feel guilty in this situation. However, Hongzhuang was not only full of confidence, she could even intimidate everyone below the stage as soon as she opened her mouth. Di Xiaofeng's heart was also filled with amazement, but it quickly turned into admiration. No wonder she was Bai Li Hongzhuang. She was so domineering. The future wife of the head of the Di family should be like this. The eyes of Bai Li Fan and the others lit up when they saw this. Even if it was just a few words, it was already enough to prove that she had the means to intimidate everyone. As the head of the family, I will do my best to make the family stronger. However, I haven't lived here all these years, so I don't know much about the family. Therefore, I made a decision. Bai Li Fan will be the second patriarch, and Bai Li Tianheng will be the young patriarch. Following Bai Li Hongzhuang's words, everyone who had their heads lowered raised their heads in shock. They stared blankly at Bai Li Hongzhuang, wondering if they had heard wrongly. Bai Li Fan and Bai Li Hongzhuang's faces were also filled with disbelief. None of them thought that Bai Li Hongzhuang would actually make such a decision. Head of the family? Bai Li Fan couldn't help but ask. Bai Li Hongzhuang raised her hand slightly and stopped him. In the future, I won't be staying in the family all the time. The family's matters will be handed over to you all. I believe that the Bai Li family will become stronger and stronger. If Bai Li Hongzhuang's intimidating words made everyone a little dissatisfied, then after hearing Bai Li Hongzhuang's decision, their thoughts completely changed. Chapter 5249. Bai Li Tianheng's heart continued to rise and fall. This sudden change really made him feel that it was hard to accept. First, Bai Li Hongzhuang appeared and completely cut off his hopes of becoming the patriarch. Just as he helplessly accepted it, this sudden change made him incomparably incomparably shocked. He never thought that Bai Li Hongzhuang would make such a decision. Thinking back to all his previous dissatisfaction, in front of Bai Li Hongzhuang's open and above-board manner, all of it became a joke. He was really gauging the heart of a gentleman with the yardstick of a villain. His father's judgment was right. Bai Li Hongzhuang had no reason to fight for it. From the beginning to the end, they were just overthinking. When Di Xiaofeng and the others heard Bai Li Hongzhuang's decision, they were also extremely surprised. Di Xiaofeng subconsciously looked at Di Beichen, but found that Di Beichen's expression was calm, as if he had already expected this. Turning his eyes, Di Xiaofeng found that Mo Yunjue also had a calm expression. Obviously, this situation was not beyond his expectations. When he saw that Shangguan Ying and Wen Ziren also had a look of astonishment, his mood calmed down a little. Fortunately, he was not the only one who felt this way. The group of elders stared blankly at this scene. This sudden change made them feel too surprised, but more than that, they were pleasantly surprised. In this way, the problem they were worried about before could be completely solved. They no longer had to worry about anything. Applause suddenly burst out. From the first person to the entire audience applauding, everyone's faces were filled with joyful smiles. After a while, Bailey Hongzhuang walked down the high platform and walked to Di Beichen's side. Beichen! Bailey Hongzhuang called out softly. This was a decision she had made herself, and she had not told anyone before. When she raised her head, she found that Di Beichen's deep black eyes were like a warm ocean. A spring breeze-like smile bloomed on his face. Wife, you did very well. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips also raised into a faint smile. The spring breeze seemed to blow into her heart, making her feel sweet. Yes, no matter what decision she made, Beichen would always support her. In the next 2 days, Bailey Hongzhuang directly copied the cultivation method and martial technique and handed it to Bai Li Fan. At the same time, Bai Li Fan also told Bailey Hongzhuang the family's current situation in detail. Even though most of the matters were left to them to handle, Bailey Hongzhuang was still the head of the family after all. In the end, she still had to understand these matters better. Originally, everyone thought that Bailey Hongzhuang's first time coming into contact with these family matters and that it would be a very slow process for her to grasp them through a comprehensive study. However, they never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would be so smart. With just a few casual pointers, she had already understood everything. Bailey Hongzhuang was the head of the family in her previous life, so she was very familiar with these matters. As long as she had a rough understanding of the data, she would be able to make a relative judgment of the situation. During this process, the group of elders began to agree more and more with Bai Li Fan's previous actions. This was simply too wise. After Bai Li Fan and the other elders looked at the cultivation method written by Bailey Hongzhuang, they immediately knew that this was their family's original inheritance. Chapter 5250. This was because Bai Li Fan and the other elders of the family had been practicing other techniques for many years. Not only would it not benefit them to change their techniques, it might even affect their cultivation. Therefore, they could only choose to give up. However, there was still a possibility for the younger generation of cultivators to change their techniques. Therefore, Bailey Hongzhuang gathered a group of young disciples led by Bailey Tianheng and let them try to cultivate. However, even if it was the family's technique, it was not something that anyone could cultivate. Back then, only a small number of people in the Bailey family were able to cultivate. Therefore, everyone had the idea of giving it a try. If they were able to cultivate it successfully, it would undoubtedly be the best. In the process of trying, there were naturally many cultivators who failed. However, there were also some who succeeded. Among the successful cultivators were Bailey Tianheng, Bailey Yunyan, and Bailey Shi. Everyone did not find it strange that Bailey Tianheng and Bailey Yunyan had such talent. However, when they found out that Bailey Shi also had such talent, they were extremely surprised. Not only them, even Bailey Shi found it hard to believe when she found out. After all, her cultivation talent was not as good as Bailey Yunyan's. Immediately after, Bailey Yunyan and the others discovered that ever since they were able to cultivate the family's technique, their status in the family had changed. This was because Bailey Hongzhuang and the others knew how powerful the family's technique was. Even if there was a delay during the conversion, as long as they completely changed, their cultivation speed would catch up. In addition, when the alchemists and doctors of the Bailey family came to ask for advice, Bailey Hongzhuang did not reject them. Instead, she did her best to guide them. In an instant, everyone could feel Bailey Hongzhuang's sincerity towards the family. She really wanted to make the Bailey family stronger. Regarding this point, not to mention the group of young disciples, even the various elders were somewhat unable to understand somewhat. No matter what, everyone had their own selfish motives. However, Bailey Hongzhuang did not ask for anything in return. This made them sigh. Within a short period of time, the children of the Bailey family had completely changed their opinion of Bailey Hongzhuang, from their initial rejection to their support. The appearance of Bailey Hongzhuang allowed them to see the dawn of the family's strength. What's more, their family head was the young mistress of the D family, which meant that they were bound to the D family. From the way Bewitching treated Bailey Hongzhuang so seriously, the D family would definitely take care of Bailey Hongzhuang in the future. Thinking of this, everyone couldn't help but feel excited. This was a great thing. On this day, Nangong Yuqing and Nangong Xiaolong finally entered the Bailey family. At this moment, the two of them were very angry. They had already arrived near the Bailey family 2 days ago, but because they had never been here before, it took them a long time to find it. During this process, they also tried to find the Bailey family, but there was no response from the beginning to the end. Thinking that the time of the poison's attack was getting closer and closer, the two of them did not dare to give up. They could only walk around in circles. Recently, someone from the Bailey family finally came to pick them up. Most importantly, the Bailey family's cultivators appeared at the place where they had been wandering for the past 2 days. Chapter 52-51. Nangong Xiaolong felt his blood boil. A mere Bailey family actually dared to treat them like this. He didn't need to think to know that the Bailey family was doing this on purpose. They were toying with them, making them walk around in circles. Bewitching and the others were probably laughing at them. Nangong Yuqing's complexion was also extremely ugly. Even though he had already guessed that this matter wouldn't be resolved so easily, he didn't expect to be rejected at the door just now. This display of strength was really too much. If Bailey Hongzhuang knew about this, she would feel that she had wronged them. They didn't have such an intention at all. It was just that they were too busy these past 2 days. On one hand, Bailey Hongzhuang was inheriting the family head position. On the other hand, they spent a lot of effort on the family's inheritance, so they didn't pay too much attention to the outside world. Compared to the family's matters, Nangong Xiaolong was an insignificant person that they didn't pay attention to. Xiaolong, Di Xiaofeng and the others aren't easy to deal with. I'm afraid this matter won't be over easily. Are you really confident? Nangong Yuqing's expression sank. This time, the two of them came alone. In fact, he was a bit worried. If Di Xiaofeng and the others still didn't agree after Nangong Xiaolong apologized, then the two of them really couldn't find any other way. Compared to Nangong Yuqing's worry, Nangong Xiaolong was a lot calmer. He waved his hand and said, "Don't worry, Bailey, she is dead set on me. You didn't see her pestering me when I was about to leave. If you saw it, then you wouldn't be worried." Seeing Nangong Xiaolong's confidence, Nangong Yuqing let out a sigh of relief. That's good. As long as you can convince Bailey then Bewitching and the others won't continue to make things difficult for you. I understand. Nangong Xiaolong's face darkened. When he thought about how his current predicament was all thanks to them, he really wanted to kill these damned fellows. Sooner or later, I'll make them pay 100-fold. Endure for a while and calm down. This time, we'll turn big things into small things and small things into nothing. As for other matters, we'll talk about it later. After Nangong Yuqing and Nangong Yuqing entered the Bailey family, the surrounding cultivators all looked at them. At this time, there were only 2 people who came. Other than Nangong Xiaolong and Yi Qingyu, they could not think of any other possibility. That must be Nangong Xiaolong. He is really shameless. This guy is scum. That's right. He actually dared to treat Shi-Er like that. He's simply inhumane. This guy isn't a good person to begin with. You can tell just by looking at his appearance. Neither of them are pleasing to the eye. Nangong Xiaolong and Nangong Yuqing walked in under the curses of the crowd. Even if they were thick-skinned, it was still hard for them to bear being pointed at like this. These fellows really have bad mouths. Nangong Xiaolong's face was ashen. He had never been scolded like this in all these years. It's all because of you. Nangong Yuqing's face turned red. In the face of all these people pointing at him, he felt like he couldn't even lift his head. Most importantly, these people completely regarded him and Nangong Xiaolong as the same kind of people. Not to mention other aspects, at least in terms of feelings, he and Nangong Xiaolong were not the same type. Chapter 52-52. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the others heard the news of Nangong Xiaolong and Bailey Yunxi's arrival, they came out of their rooms. Sure enough, they saw the two loathsome figures from afar. Bailey Yunyan and Bailey Shi happened to be with them, so they didn't expect to bump into them. Bailey Shi looked at the azure figure in front of her. The smile on her face immediately froze, and there was no longer any trace of a smile on her face. Nangong Xiaolong also noticed Bailey Shi's figure, and a trace of a smile appeared on his face. As long as Bailey Shi was here, he didn't need to worry too much. Nangong Yuqing actually came with Nangong Xiaolong. Xiren raised his eyebrows with ridicule and disgust. These two fellows are really worthy of being a family. They both look so loathsome. Following Xiren's words, everyone nodded slightly. Their point of view was very similar. When Nangong Yuqing saw Di Beichen's group, his expression sank. However, he didn't lose his momentum just because the other side had more people. Di Beichen were already here. You can't refuse the antidote. Nangong Yuqing said in a deep voice. The corners of Di Beichen's mouth rose into a mocking smile, but his black eyes were filled with coldness. That will depend on whether Nangong Xiaolong's apology is sincere or not. At the same time, Bailey Yuni and the others rushed over after hearing the news. They were very clear on how excessive Nangong Xiaolong was. If he was just being perfunctory, they definitely wouldn't agree to it. Nangong Xiaolong glanced at Di Beichen and said, "So I only need to obtain Shi Er's forgiveness?" Hearing this, Di Beichen's gaze turned to Bailey Yunyan and Bailey Shi. This matter was still up to them to decide. That's right. Bailey Yunyan nodded. As long as you can obtain Shi Er's forgiveness, we'll let you go. All right then. A smile appeared on Nangong Xiaolong's face. This was the answer he wanted. It would be difficult to get other people to agree, but getting Bailey Shi to agree was much easier. In the next moment, Nangong Xiaolong turned to Bailey Shi and said, "Shi, let's talk alone." After saying that, Nangong Xiaolong grabbed Bailey Shi's hand. However, Bailey Shi flung his hand away. Her pretty face was cold and distant. "If you have something to say it here." Nangong Xiaolong was slightly taken aback. He didn't expect Bailey Shi to have such an attitude. One had to know that Bailey Shi was very happy to have the opportunity to get close to him in the past. "Isn't it inconvenient to talk about our matters here?" Nangong Xiaolong asked again. In his opinion, it was easy to deal with women. As long as he said a few nice words and coaxed her, there would be no problem. However, it was inconvenient to do so in front of so many people. Bailey Shi sneered, "There's only you and me here. There's no we. Didn't you say the same thing to me before?" She clearly remembered Nangong Xiaolong's heartless appearance back then. If she had been blinded by a single leaf in the past, then she would be a fool if she still acted foolishly with so many people supporting her. Chapter 52-53. Hearing Nangong Yuqing's reminder, Nangong Xiaolong nodded. It seemed that he had been too naive. After not seeing her for a while, Bailey Shi's attitude had become much more unyielding. It seemed that Bailey Yunyan and the others had been instilling ideas into her. I don't need to tell you how deep our feelings are. I believe you can feel my feelings for you. Back then I had no choice but to do what I did. You know the difference between the two of us. However, I've finally convinced my family that I can take you home as my concubine. Isn't this what you've always wanted?" Nangong Xiaolong looked at Bailey Shi with sparkling eyes filled with joy and determination. He knew how eager Bailey Shi was to return to the family with him. As long as he made this promise, Bailey Shi definitely wouldn't refuse. As for having another concubine, it didn't mean anything to him. Once Bailey Shi returned with him, she would be part of his family. No matter what happened, Bailey Yunyan and the others wouldn't be able to do anything about it. Hearing Nangong Xiaolong's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others' expressions changed. They had seen shameless people before, but they had never seen someone this shameless. "Nangong Xiaolong, if I remember correctly, You're already a cripple, right? You still have the nerve to ask she, to return with you? Xiren looked at Nangong Xiaolong in disbelief. They had underestimated this guy's shamelessness. It was simply shocking. That's right. You can even say something like that and still want to be a concubine. Bailey Uni rolled his eyes. With your current situation, we wouldn't agree even if you took she, home as your wife. This guy is probably stupid. Even now, he still can't see reality clearly. Shengguan Ying sighed. Her expression was filled with sympathy, making others feel that Nangong Xiaolong had become an idiot. Nangong Xiaolong, who thought he could move Bailey Shi, suddenly had an unsightly expression when he heard everyone's words. In the face of such impolite ridicule, he really could not continue to pretend. At the same time, Bai Li Shi's voice rang out, Nangong Xiaolong, I'm no longer the Bai Li Shi of the past. You don't have to play tricks in front of me. Since you want to apologize, then apologize properly. Otherwise, just disappear. She used to think that Nangong Xiaolong was her world, but it had only been 2 years. She no longer looked the same. A few days ago, she still didn't know how to face Nangong Xiaolong. However, after she found out that she could cultivate her family's cultivation method and found what she needed to do, her thoughts changed completely. Perhaps she had been too narrow-minded in the past. She had never thought that there were more things she could do other than obsessing over these things. Now that she had seen how Bailey Hongzhuang was so powerful at such a young age, and how she was able to take on the position of the head of the family with ease, she finally understood that there could be another way in life. Looking at Nangong Xiaolong in front of her again, she no longer liked him as much as before. She only felt that she was too stupid back then. Chapter 52-54. After seeing Bailey Shi's performance, Bailey Yunyan's eyes were filled with joy. Their efforts to enlighten Bailey Shi hadn't been in vain. Seeing this guy again, Bailey Yunyan's heart didn't soften at all. Before this, Bailey Yunyan was a little worried. After all, Bailey Yunyan knew all too well how Bailey Shi had risked her life for Nangong Xiaolong. How could it be so easy for her to let go? Fortunately, Bailey Shi really did it. Bailey Tianheng looked at Nangong Xiaolong, who was still unwilling to give up, and said, either kneel down and apologize, or get lost. Bailey Shi was his little sister who he watched grow up, yet she was ruined by such a shameless scum. He was heartbroken. He didn't have the slightest intention of being polite to such a guy. As soon as these words came out, Nangong Xiaolong was stunned. His eyes widened and his face turned red. You dare to make me kneel? If you don't want to kneel, you can just leave. Bailey Tianheng stretched out his hand and pointed in the direction of the Bailey family's door. This guy was here to ask for medicine, yet he still dared to be so arrogant. It was obvious that Bailey Shi was bullied by him when they were together. Seeing this, Nangong Xiaolong's anger surged. A mere cultivator from the Bailey family dared to speak to him with such an attitude. He must have eaten a bear's heart and leopard's guts. Nangong Yuqing couldn't help but speak up after seeing everyone's attitude. We came here to apologize, but don't you think you've gone too far by humiliating us like this? Too far? Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. The one who was hurt is Bailey Shi. What did we do? Since we came here to apologize, then we should apologize properly. Did Nangong Xiaolong's previous words have the slightest intention of apologizing? Even now, he's still trying to take advantage of us. It can be seen that you don't have the slightest bit of regret. Bailey Yunyan's ink-black phoenix eyes were filled with coldness and disgust. She was already full of disgust for Nangong Xiaolong, and now his behavior made her feel that this guy was a complete bastard. Now that he was impotent, he still wanted to marry Bailey Shi. This meant that during this period of time, he didn't even think of apologizing. He only treated Bailey Shi as a bargaining chip. If that's the case, then scram. Nangong Yuqing looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, his eyes flickering. He didn't expect that Bailey Hongzhuang would suddenly stand up. Bailey Hongzhuang, this is the Bailey family's business. What does it have to do with you? Nangong Xiaolong looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with dissatisfaction. It was because this woman had poisoned him that he had to suffer such humiliation. He knew very well what kind of person Bailey Hongzhuang was. If it weren't for Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, Bailey she definitely wouldn't have become like this. This is our patriarch, Bailey Tianheng said solemnly. She is a member of our clan. Naturally, she is related to patriarch. Nangong Yuqing and Nangong Xiaolong were stunned. They glanced at each other, wondering if they had misheard. When did Bailey Hongzhuang become the patriarch of the Bailey family? Even if Bailey Hongzhuang's surname was Bailey, she came from the lower realm. She had nothing to do with the Bailey family. Chapter 52-55. Seeing Nangong Yuqing and Nangong Xiaolong's stunned expression, Bailey Tianheng understood their astonishment and said, I said, this is the head of the Bailey family. Looking in the direction of Bailey Tianheng's hand, it was Bailey Hongzhuang. Are you kidding? Nangong Xiaolong was stunned. This was too unbelievable. It's not like we don't know her identity. She has nothing to do with the Bailey family. How can she be the head of your family? Her identity? After hearing Nangong Xiaolong's words, Di Beichen's eyes suddenly became gloomy. His voice was cold and hard. What? Noticing Di Beichen's cold gaze, Nangong Xiaolong was startled and couldn't help but take a step back. Not to mention other things, when facing Di Beichen, he felt a little guilty. After all, this guy's attainments in the dark attribute were simply abnormal. Even Di Xiaofeng couldn't give him such pressure. Nangong Yuqing stood in front of Nangong Xiaolong and looked straight at Di Beichen. So, the Di family and the Bailey family are now working together? Anyone with a discerning eye can see that. Are you blind? Di Xiaofeng said indifferently. Hearing this, Nangong Yuqing sneered and his eyes fell on Di Beichen. Di Beichen, in order to give your wife a suitable identity, you really put in a lot of effort. For a long time, Bailey Hongzhuang had been criticized because of her identity. How many people thought that she was not worthy of Di Beichen? Even if the Bailey family's strength couldn't be compared with the Di family, it was still a family with a long history. What's more, Bailey Hongzhuang was the head of the family. Her identity was completely different. He knew that Di Beichen loved Bailey Hongzhuang very much, but he didn't expect that he would even prepare such a thing for her. This is the Bailey family's business. It has nothing to do with me. Di Beichen spread out his hands and said, Do you think anyone would believe what you said? Nangong Yuqing did not believe such an excuse. It was impossible for Bailey Hongzhuang to do this by herself. Bailey Tianheng, I can't believe that your family would do such a thing just to get close to the Di family. But, your position as the clan head has been taken away just like that. How can you accept it? This was the decision of our previous patriarch. Bailey Tianheng coldly looked at Nangong Yuqing. What's more, the patriarch is a member of our Bailey family. What do you mean by clinging on to him? Bailey Yunyan also stood up. Let me tell you, don't make wild guesses. The patriarch is the destined person of our family. She has the blood of our family flowing in her body. Originally, they were certain that the Bailey family had made such a decision to get close to the Di family and the Lin family. However, after hearing Bailey Yunyan's words, they became uncertain. Could it be that Bailey Hongzhuang was really a member of the Bailey family? Wasn't this news too unbelievable? For a moment, Nangong Yuqing and Nangong Xiaolong were extremely depressed. If they could say that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were meddling in other people's business before, they couldn't say that now. This was because Nangong Xiaolong had bullied Bailey Hongzhuang's family. Whether it was the Di family or the Lin family, it was reasonable for them to intervene. Chapter 52-56. Seeing the two looking at each other in dismay, Bailey Hongzhuang's voice slowly rang out. Since she has already thought things through and Nangong Xiaolong doesn't have the slightest sincerity in apologizing, then let's drop this matter. In any case, we don't care about your apology. Scram. Bailey Hongzhuang's exquisite face was cold. It wasn't that she didn't give Nangong Xiaolong a chance, but this guy had been here for a while and hadn't even said a word of apology. Since that was the case, why should they waste their time here and waste their time with him? As soon as she finished speaking, Bailey Hongzhuang turned around and walked away. Bailey Yunyan and the others also turned around. They all understood why Bailey Hongzhuang was doing this. In fact, Bailey Hongzhuang had already given Nangong Xiaolong a chance by not poisoning him to death. However, this guy still had an unrepentant appearance. Since that was the case, they might as well let him die. Nangong Xiaolong clearly didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to leave like this. When he thought about how his life was still in her hands, he couldn't help but panic. Bailey Hongzhuang, wait. However, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't pay any attention to him. She didn't stop walking. The reason why they wanted Nangong Xiaolong to apologize was to help Bailey. She put an end to the past. On one hand, Bailey she had already seen through everything. On the other hand, Nangong Xiaolong was stubborn and didn't have any thoughts of repentance. Since that was the case, why bother? Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others weren't pretending, Nangong Xiaolong and Nangong Yuqing looked at each other. They both expected the situation to be bad. No, we can't let them leave like this. Nangong Yuqing said anxiously. They had come here for the antidote. If they didn't obtain it, then Nangong Xiaolong's life would be in danger. Nangong Xiaolong quickly chased after them and circled around to Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang, you said that as long as I obtain Bailey Shi's forgiveness, you will give me the antidote. How can you go back on your word? Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a mocking smile. You're going back on your word? Nangong Xiaolong, aren't you too shameless? Shengguan Yingying couldn't stand it anymore. I haven't heard you apologize yet, and you still have the nerve to say that we didn't keep our word. Patriarch, ignore him. Bailey Shi's expression was indifferent. His eyes were cold and merciless. Now, the more she looked at Nangong Xiaolong, the more she felt that she had been foolish. Now that this guy had embarrassed himself in front of everyone, she felt ashamed. Bailey Shi, how could you do this to me? Nangong Xiaolong couldn't understand how Bailey Shi had become a completely different person in such a short time. Don't you know how you treated me back then? If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have become like this. Thinking of her unborn child, she felt her heart ache. It was all because of this man's heartlessness and her own incompetence that her child had to leave so coldly. See the guests out. Bailey Hongzhuang's red lips slightly parted. Her voice was cold, but it carried an irresistible taste. The Bailey family's guards immediately stood up and coldly looked at Nangong Xiaolong and Shengguan Yingying. Chapter 52-57. Seeing that the other party was serious, Nangong Xiaolong didn't dare to be as indifferent as before. No matter what, his own life was the most important. I apologize, I'll apologize immediately. Nangong Xiaolong hurriedly said, his gaze turning to Bailey Shi. I'm sorry, it was all my fault. I hurt you, please forgive me. The child is already gone, what wrong did he do? Bailey Shi glared at Nangong Xiaolong, flames burning in her eyes as well as boundless sorrow. She clearly remembered the pain of losing her child. It was all because of this man in front of her. Back then, he was so heartless. She never thought that he would kneel in front of her and apologize. Hearing Bailey Shi's words, Nangong Xiaolong's expression shook. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. In the past, he didn't care about this matter at all. As a direct descendant of the Nangong family, who knows how many women wanted to bear his child, he didn't care at all. Moreover, Bailey Shi was just a woman from the Bailey family, she wasn't worthy of him. But now, he was a cripple, he couldn't have another generation. This made him feel incomparably regretful. If Bailey Shi had given birth to this child back then, he would have at least had another child. I really know my wrongs. Nangong Xiaolong stared at Bailey Shi. It was all my fault back then, you should blame and hate me. Tears slowly appeared in the corners of Bailey Shi's eyes. No matter how much she tried to hold on, the pain was still vivid in her mind. She used to be so bright, filled with fantasies about everything, but all her hopes were destroyed by this guy, bit by bit. Now, she was covered in bruises, all her beautiful fantasies turned into wishful thinking. Her life was ruined by the hands of the man she used to love the most. Just forgive me this once. For the sake of our past friendship, please spare me this time. I won't forgive you. Bailey Shi angrily shouted, her eyes turning red. It's all because of you, everything is ruined. In the next moment, Bailey she resolutely turned around, her face filled with hatred and hatred. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others didn't hesitate. The choice was in Bailey she's hands. No matter what decision she made, they would support her. Seeing Bailey she leave, Nangong Xiaolong immediately knelt down. Sorry, I'm really sorry. Nangong Xiaolong hugged Bailey she's leg. I was too stupid in the past, that's why I did such a beastly thing. I regret it. I really regret it. Can you believe me and forgive me? No matter what, we once had a beautiful time. Do you really want me to die? Please, I don't want to die. Nangong Xiaolong's eyes were filled with anxiety. This was his only hope. He had consulted so many doctors before, but none of them could solve his problem. Bailey Hongzhuang's method of poisoning was simply too cruel, so this was his only chance. Although he miscalculated and didn't expect Bailey she to be so heartless, he had to get the antidote even if he had to risk it. Nangong Yuqing couldn't help but speak up when she saw this scene. Bailey Xiaolong really knows his wrongs. Do you really have the heart to let him die like this? Chapter 52-58. You just want to live. If it wasn't for the patriarch, would you have come? Bailey she sneered, but her expression was sad. If Nangong Xiaolong had apologized like this, she might have believed him. But she had clearly seen his actions just now. How could she believe him? What do I have to do for you to let me go? In the next moment, Nangong Xiaolong kowtowed. I beg you, give me the antidote. I'm begging you. Bailey she's eyes were red. Looking at the man kneeling on the ground and begging for mercy, her heart was filled with mixed feelings. She subconsciously looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the others who were not far away, her eyes constantly changing. At this time, Bailey Hongzhuang spoke. Leave this matter to she. Will leave first. Hearing this, Bailey Yunyan and the others were stunned. They didn't understand, but they still nodded and left with Bailey Hongzhuang. Nangong Xiaolong and the others shouldn't be here for long. Everyone, there's no need to worry about this matter. Let's go back. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly as she spoke to everyone. As the family disciples dispersed, Mo Yunjue spoke. You knew that Bailey she would be soft-hearted, so you had everyone leave, right? She still couldn't bear to do it. Her inky black phoenix eyes were filled with wisdom. From Bailey she's gaze, she knew that no matter how tough she appeared, she couldn't watch Nangong Xiaolong die with her own eyes. After all, he was once the person she loved. Perhaps Nangong Xiaolong would die from someone else's injuries in the future, but she couldn't do it herself. Wouldn't that be letting Nangong Xiaolong off too easily? Shangguan Yingying frowned. This kind of person should die. Forget it. Even if that kind of person survives this time, he will die at the hands of others sooner or later. Beichen's expression was calm. This situation wasn't out of his expectations. Bailey she wasn't a cruel person. Compared to them who had been training outside for a long time, Bailey she was much more simple. She wasn't as ruthless and decisive as them. However, people would always grow. After this incident, she had grown a lot. That's true. When Xiren chuckled, but that fellow has become like this, he has already become a joke. Since he wants to struggle at death's door, why not give him a chance? When Bailey she saw Bailey Hongzhuang leading everyone away, she couldn't help but feel guilty. She understood that with the patriarch's intelligence, he must have noticed her hesitation, which was why he made such a decision. Please spare my life. Seeing this, Bailey she coldly looked at the man without any dignity on the ground. She suddenly didn't understand why she liked this guy. I'll spare your lowly life. Bailey she threw the porcelain bottle on the ground. When Nangong Xiaolong saw the porcelain bottle, he hurriedly picked it up as if he had found a treasure. His face was filled with joy. You can continue to struggle at death's door. Sooner or later, the heavens will take care of someone like you. Now get out of our family, I don't want to see you again. Everything that happened between us will disappear like smoke and pretend it never happened. When her voice fell, Bailey she resolutely chose to leave. Perhaps, she was only doing this to give herself an explanation. Chapter 52-59. Watching Bailey Shi leave, Nangong Xiaolong looked at the porcelain bottle in his hand. His heart was filled with complex emotions, but his gaze quickly turned gloomy. Those damn Bailey family bastards, how dare they humiliate me? Nangong Yuqing sighed in relief. Today's situation made him feel powerless. From the beginning to the end, he didn't have a chance to speak. Fortunately, Bailey Shi gave the antidote to Nangong Xiaolong. Revenge is a dish best served cold. As long as we can obtain the antidote, we will have succeeded this time. Nangong Yuqing slowly said. Nangong Xiaolong's eyes were filled with hatred. Sooner or later, I will return all of this to them. This is the Bailey family's territory. Be careful with your words. Let's leave this place first. Nangong Yuqing cautiously looked around. Fortunately, the thing he was most worried about didn't happen. If Bailey Hongzhuang and the others attacked them here, their lives would be in danger. Although Nangong Xiaolong had suffered a lot of humiliation, at least he would be able to keep his life. Compared to that, nothing else mattered. Hearing Nangong Yuqing's words, Nangong Xiaolong restrained himself and quickly left the Bailey family with Nangong Yuqing. If possible, he really didn't want to stay here for a second longer. The cultivators of the Bailey clan also saw Nangong Xiaolong kneeling and kowtowing to Bailey Shi from afar. At this moment, seeing them quickly escape, their eyes were full of ridicule. This despicable and shameless bastard has finally received his punishment today. He deserved it. I heard that he can no longer have sex. This is the best outcome. What are you looking at? What's there to look at? Nangong Xiaolong couldn't help but roar. These damn bastards, they used to be trampled under his feet. Now they actually dared to ridicule him so unscrupulously. This was simply unbearable. Nangong Yuqing pulled Nangong Xiaolong and warned him, "Let's go quickly." In the next moment, the two of them used their movement skills and left the Bailey family as fast as they could. It wasn't until they left the Bailey family's gate that the two of them quietly breathed a sigh of relief. Yuqing, you said that the antidote should be real, right? Nangong Xiaolong looked at the antidote in his hand, but didn't immediately take it. There was still some doubt in his heart. You were already poisoned before. She had no reason to lie to you. Nangong Yuqing spread his hands. If Bailey Hongzhuang ants wanted to kill them, they would already be dead. Why would they go through so much trouble? Hearing this, Nangong Xiaolong nodded. You're right. I'll take it then. Take it, Nangong Yuqing said calmly. There won't be any problems. Tianheng Tianheng Tianheng's Tianheng's Tianheng, Tianheng Tianheng Tianheng's Tianheng Tianheng, Tianheng with Tianheng 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 Tianheng. Bailey Tianheng is the Bailey family's young master. Looking at his appearance, he doesn't seem to have any objections to Bailey Hongzhuang taking over the family head position. On the contrary, he seems to be very supportive. Nangong Xiaolong was puzzled. Logically speaking, Bailey Hongzhuang's position as the Tianheng family's Tianheng was replaced. No matter how he looked at it, it was impossible for him to accept it. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.